Good evening and welcome back to Mystic Matters. We are the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce. And just a shout out to Kristin Hartnett, who's been pinch hitting here with me for, I don't know, for a long time. I look at the credits and I say, you know what, Kristin's been with me for at least, 4.5 months, 5 months or whatever. It's been just a real pleasure working with her on Mystic Matters. We just got off the art festival. It was... hot.
I just flew in from the art festival, and boy, are my arms tired.
Oh my gosh! It was that was some weekend, wasn't it, Kristin?
It was some weekend.
And thanks again for helping out. But just a shout out to all of our volunteers, and a special shout out to our staff. That was from Bill Smith and his wife Betty, and all of our interns, and Kristin, and Alexa Shelton for pinch hitting this year, and certainly all of our hundreds of volunteers that came out. With such an excruciating hot weekend, but we made it.
We did. It was a beautiful show, actually. It was a really good show.
It was a great show.
And the pictures, you can't tell that it was hot.
Right.
At all.
Right.
The pictures are beautiful.
Well, I don't know, Kristin. There was a few pictures of you and I.
Well, those are when we have like towels on our heads.
Oh, that was and,
like
pretty hot.
Little towels wrapped around our necks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But now we're gearing up as we do at the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce into the month of September. So, Kristin, why don't you fill us in on what's going on?
All right. So September 1st, we're going to Ender's Island. We're having business before hours.
Fantastic.
That'll be a beautiful morning. They'll have some refreshments, and we'll do some networking over there. Also, the September business after hours is on the 13th. That's the second Tuesday.
Okay.
And that's going to be at Stone Ridge. We always appreciate Stone Ridge. They have a great little area with a patio out back downstairs, and they always have good food. So that's
Kristin, it's always good food.
It's always good food.
I have to throw that in.
That's important. You come after work, you're hungry.
Good food.
And also, I do have an announcement to make, Susette.
You do?
I do.
Right here?
Right here,
Mystic
right
Matters?
now. Yes.
Wow.
So, as the public may know, we've been going through some changes at the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce. Yeah. Some welcome changes. We're very happy about the direction that we're headed in. Interim President Bill Smith
has been
fantastic in taking the chamber and kind of digging into what it is we need to do and
refocusing.
Refocusing, exactly.
Right.
So one of the things that we are doing in order to prove our repurpose is we're going to be moving
fantastic.
to a new location, and it is right on Greenmanville Avenue, a perfectly visible, serviceable information center on Greenmanville Avenue to serve our members better.
It's fantastic. What's
We're
the address?
Very excited. 62 Greenmanville Avenue.
Yeah.
You pass it. 12,000 people pass it a day.
Yeah.
A day.
Yeah.
I tell you. So we're so excited about that.
It's fantastic.
That's going to happen in the fall.
Yeah.
So keep looking out for us moving.
Well, there'll be plenty of signage, and so you'll see obviously where we are, and of course probably a better presence for us too, as we're in the heart of Mystic.
In the heart of Mystic, yes.
Congratulations, you got to set up another office.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah. Make sure you get the right paint, though, Kristin.
Okay.
But anyways, we want to welcome everybody back to Mystic Matters, and as usual, we have some great guests here tonight. I want to introduce to my left Casey, as she wants to be called, KC, not in the Sunshine Band, but in Hospice, Masonicare, and welcome back. Welcome to Mystic Matters. And of course, on my right-hand side, Wendy. And your title is, Wendy?
Hospice Volunteer Coordinator.
Hospice Volunteer Coordinator. And what I want to point out before we get into some of our conversation here is you can't miss Masonicare and Mystic. If you go to McQuaid's, you can see it. You can see it from Coogan Boulevard. I mean, it's been a project that's been going on years and years, and I do have to tell you, it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah,
it's absolutely. I've seen sort of the mock-up, Kristin. I know you have too.
On the show, they were on the show a while back.
Going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
So we welcome the two of you to Mystic Matters, and obviously to Mystic.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think, Casey, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Okay. As we enter into that sort of conversation of hospice. So why don't you take us the direction that you generally go and when you meet with people.
Thank you. Well, I am part of a team. We all meet together. We have a nurse case manager, social worker, chaplain. We can have massage therapy. We have volunteers and expressive arts. And all of those team members make up the hospice team that goes in, and we can provide those services for the patient either in the home or in the facility. And my part of that team is to kind of take the temperature of the home, make sure that the folks in the home are doing okay, emotionally, psychologically, physically, and be an advocate for them. Get the services they need in the home, make sure that everything's going okay. If there are kids in the home, take care of the kids. And anybody that that patient or that family feels is a family member, we help them through this process as well. It's walking the walk with the patient and the family.
So you're going to be having an office, a central location at Masonicare.
Yes.
And will you be there at Masonicare, or will you be on call for?
Well,
how does that
I
work?
see patients both in facilities, which would include Mystic Manor, and in homes. So I go a lot through a lot of the eastern part of Connecticut. I see patients throughout eastern Connecticut in homes and facilities.
Okay.
You know, we talk a little bit about hospice and sort of, you know, can't say that word not until we're ready. When are we ready?
We get a bad rap, don't we?
You know,
Right.
people, you see them, you know, with that little sad face. I mean, it's not that they sort of know, and in our world, I mean, the elephant in the room,
Sure.
the end is coming. So when exactly, Casey, do you approach that subject?
Isn't that a hard thing? Right. In order to be qualified for hospice, you need to have physicians determine that, generally speaking, your illness will last 6 months or less. That doesn't mean that people are all going to die within 6 months. It means that if the process were to continue the way it's been going, generally speaking, that person would probably have 6 months or less to live. Now, that being said, many of our patients come on and they're only with us for a few months. Sometimes they're on for a lot longer than 6 months. There are patients, though, that we get that we only have a couple of days with. And that's a really sad situation for the family and for us, because we like to be able to develop a relationship with the families, with the patient. We like to be able to offer them the services for a good death, for helping the family to be able to grieve pre-grieving and post-grieving, because we do offer services long after the patient has passed. In order for you to go into hospice, you need to have the doctor kind of order it. And a lot of times families don't want it to come in. They don't want us in their homes or in the facility because, like you said, it automatically puts a bad taste in their mouth. And unfortunately, we find that there are times when we're called in too late. We can't offer the services that would help that family and that patient to make it through this process. So there's no way to know when we should be in. But if there is a doctor that says that you're qualified for hospice, we recommend that you take them up on it. It doesn't mean you're dying. Hospice is how you live. And hospice is being able to make the decisions you want to make for as long as you have.
So how do you find in other cultures, in other countries, do they treat death differently? Or is it just our country or North America per se that treats death with kind of a hands-off or I don't want to talk about it or denial?
You know, it depends on where you are. We are a country who wants to be going all the time. Other countries, folks aren't like that in other countries, and so they have in England and in France, where hospice originated, they have had time for hospice to be accepted into their culture. We've only had hospice in the United States since the mid-70s.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And so we're still in the infancy of hospice in the United States. When you say the word hospice, everybody thinks that automatically means that you're on your last leg. Frankly, everybody's going to get there.
Right.
Like you said.
Right. It's just a matter of being prepared for it.
Exactly.
And so that kind of brings me, Wendy, to sort of what you do. You're in charge of volunteers.
I am.
And part of that is training these volunteers.
Yes.
And so what type of training would go into
Um,
volunteering?
The training is the whole aspect of the hospice experience. All the different disciplines that we offer, the nursing piece, the privacy piece, because we honor the HIPAA per regulation, the psychosocial piece, the family dynamics, what is a family, because there's a lot of different definitions of a family. We have next door neighbors, taking care of the people that are on our service. That's family to them. So every piece that we offer a family or a patient, this is what we present to the people that are training to be volunteers. So they understand the team approach for hospice, and they understand the philosophy of hospice. Of course, we discuss Masonicare and, our vision and our philosophy also as a company. And it's an extensive training. It's for 3 weeks, and it's 2 nights a week for 3 hours a night.
Wow. Wow, that's
It is
dedication.
It is. Our volunteers are dedicated. You have to be an empathetic person to be a volunteer. We have special people that donate their time. We have vigil volunteers that will sit for hours with some of our patients who are passing away, who are actively dying, so the family can have a break, so they can get a dinner, so they can get in off, cross country, and know that somebody's with their loved one while they're actively dying.
Do you ever turn anybody down? Do you ever just say, and as I'm listening to you, and empathetic and certainly compassionate, and the ability to learn your philosophy, but do you ever sit there and say you're just not going to make it, or
They kind of make that decision for themselves.
Okay. Yeah. As they go through the training.
Yeah. We do a background check. And, sometimes, not since I've been working for Masonicare, that's 4 years. As far as the background check that I've had to tell somebody that they're not eligible, to be a volunteer for Masonicare. But they'll figure it out. We've had people, usually we start out, with 100% attendees, and we probably whittle down to 80% of the number that started. And most of them realize it's either the time commitment that they can't make, or it's just not for them. And sometimes, most of our volunteers have gone through the death of a loved one, and sometimes they're just not ready to handle it. They haven't gone through the grieving process enough, to really commit to doing something. And I totally respect that. And they've come back. Some of them have come back in a year or so and said, I'm ready to try.
We actually have the number up on the screen while we're talking about getting information about becoming a volunteer. If anybody that's watching is interested in doing that, the general information and the hospice volunteer info goes right to Wendy. Wendy's like, no, give them my phone number. I want to talk to them. I want to get them on the phone right away. And I can understand that, because you kind of want to get an idea of the person and have your voice be the one that answers right away.
And there's an initial application process, and then I bring them in for an initial interview where they can ask any questions at that point. And we're very supportive. All the hospice volunteer coordinators throughout every branch, we're very supportive. We cherish our volunteers because they don't get paid, and they give up their time. And some of them drive the distance, to get to these patients and to see the patients. We also have a veteran volunteer program. And we're part of We Honor Veterans, which is a collaboration between the Veterans Administration and the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. And what that is recruiting veteran volunteers to be volunteers with our patients who are veterans.
Well, what a big difference that must make in both lives.
It does, because veterans aren't readily, ready to talk about their experiences with somebody that doesn't understand what their experiences are. But with a veteran patient and a veteran volunteer, they open up We honor them, we present them with a certificate for service and a pin, and a civilian cannot pin a veteran, only a veteran.
A veteran can pin a veteran, right.
Right, and I actually just looked into yesterday, they have war service medals now that we can also give to our veterans who have fought in a war and who have had active duty. So we're constantly educating our staff, on me included, on the whole dying process of the veteran. Casey's awesome with, trying to get the benefits. And, like she said, sometimes we have a very short window. I think 76% of veterans are not in the Veterans Administration being,
That's
I think
over
70
3/4%, but I don't know if they'd even know that that's a lot.
It's one of the questions that we ask in our initial visit with the family and the patient, because not only do we want to honor them, we want to make sure that they're getting the benefits that they're entitled to, and that they have especially the financial support, because there are times when families can't afford to have in-home services, and they don't even know that they're qualified to get those benefits from the
to
VA.
me when you said 76%.
And it's not that the VA doesn't want to help them. I mean, we have a lot of support from our local VAs. We have support from our veterans. There are volunteer groups and paid groups that come and they give us information and they train us on how to help those people get the benefits that they deserve and really need. At a time like this, you really need the folks.
But also
in the home.
earned.
And earned.
I mean,
isn't that the
we
truth?
forget they have earned
Yes.
this too.
They have. I think, some of the veterans that I have spoken with who are not in the Veterans Administration or going to the VA hospital, they've gotten jobs where they're provided with very good insurance, and then they feel it's a hassle. It's going to take too much time.
Well, they don't want to deal with the paperwork, and they don't want to.
Yep.
And we can understand that because there's a lot of red tape sometimes that
Yeah.
goes through. I do have a question as we talk about the volunteers, and of course these people are coming into sort of your space and your home and your family. How do you match them? Or do you not match them? Is that a question that I'm supposed to be asking? Because I'm thinking, okay, there's certain people that, as we all know, we have friends, and some of them we don't have friends. There's always a certain match, a person that you feel, the family feels, or they feel more comfortable with. How do you do that?
I get to know them, get to know the volunteers. You had mentioned the training is intensive, and we do a lot of self-reflection exercises. We have them do their tombstone, draw their tombstone. We have them reflect on what their funeral will look like, the people that go to their funeral. So there's a lot of things that I get out of them, through the training, and pick up
You actually
on their
get that out of
personality.
them?
I do. I pick
Wow.
up. Yeah, they're very. That's how dedicated these people are that call
that's
us.
amazing. Amazing.
And then throughout the time that they're volunteers, I actually just called a volunteer a couple weeks ago and said, we have this man on our service, and I think that you and he would have a really good fit for you being his volunteer and he being your patient to visit. And they hit it off great, and the volunteer-patient match is going well. Sometimes the volunteer will come to me and say, I'm not going to hit it off, or sometimes it's environment too. And we honor that and move on and try to find another volunteer. It doesn't happen that often. It really doesn't.
And there are times when, during our initial conversation with the family and the patient, we gather information from them.
Yes, yeah.
I sent Wendy an email the other day. This patient likes, and I just listed all the things that the family talked about this woman, so that she has that information in her back pocket and can take that to the volunteer, and it helps the volunteers too, because then they have something to talk about when they go in there.
Right.
I feel like this requires a serious amount of intimacy. So your jobs require a lot of intimacy and a certain humility, and I don't mean humility in the negative sense, but being humble.
Very.
We have to, it is such an honor. You think about this family, this patient, being in that situation, they're raw, and they don't even know. They don't know what to expect. A lot of people haven't been through this before, and we're there to walk with them so that they can experience the grief. They can have people there to help them say the things they need to say, the patients say the things they need to say. It is such an incredible honor. I get more out of being with these patients than I ever give them.
Yes.
It really is, and I think that's what our volunteers find too. I know when I've done my training with volunteers before, they have such great questions, really thoughtful, really thought-provoking questions about, what happens if this or if that, and how do I handle this situation? Or I'll tell you, one of the most important things that I ever heard from a family was when a veteran volunteer was there. And we weren't involved. We were outside the home at that time. But the son of this patient said he never talked to us about those situations, about those times. We never knew some of the things that he's talking to the volunteer about. And it's because they had that relationship, that base.
Now, do you find a contrast when you are not doing your work? Like, do you find a contrast when you go, I don't want to say out into the world, because you're in the world, obviously, but when you go to other gatherings or when you talk to people that aren't experiencing what you're experiencing, do you find kind of a discord, a sense of gap?
Well, my husband, says, this is my wife, she works with dead people. I'm like, no, I don't work with dead people. I work with people that are living.
He's trying to find humor
I
in that
work with people that are
situation.
living.
Yeah.
I find that people, when you tell them what you do, they, first of all, they look at you like a deer in the headlights because they really don't have a clue, what hospice entails. And then when you discuss it, you tell them about it, they go, I don't know how you do that. And, really sometimes I don't know how we do it because we can get very involved and intimate with the family who have been on our service for a week, or have been on our service for years. And I became a volunteer. How I got into this work is I was a volunteer 10 years ago. And of course, I got in saying, well, I'm going to give back. And, I can give of myself and look at this great person I am. No, I gave nothing. They gave me everything.
Well, that's the way, I think that's the way to look at it. And it is the way it is. The greatest gift is when you get it from somebody that you just never expected to give it to you in the first place. So
yes.
It's a great gift. One question I do have to ask is, and maybe it goes back to Casey, and this veteran talking about, he never talked about anything else except to this volunteer. At the end of every visit, is there sort of a recap? I mean, do they go back to hospice and say, okay, this is what I experienced with the patient, or this is what, is there some formal written?
Yeah, there's a visit note.
Okay, I guess that's what it would be called.
Right, we have to, the volunteer portion of hospice is regulated by Medicare. So there has to be 5% of the hours spent with the family by a volunteer.
Okay.
So I have to track those hours. But it's not really the hours that's important, it's what happened at that visit. Because when we come to, and they're not doctors, they're not nurses, so it's just observable experiences that they have during the visit. And because we bring this back to team. Each week we have an A list and a B list, and it fluctuates every week. So when we talk about that patient, then I would be able to add what the volunteer is seeing. Casey adds what she's seeing. And sometimes we can get 7 people seeing that patient over a 2-week span, and everybody has seen something different. So all that information kind of has to be compiled together so we know how to best treat, our patient and their families at that time.
All right.
I just want to mention one thing about volunteering. There's no hands-on care. They can't feed the patient. They're not responsible for toileting. It's to provide presence, provide respite for a family member. Maybe they need to go to a doctor's appointment themselves or go on an errand, take a nap. We're able to provide that for them. There's the vigil period where a patient's actively dying, where they can sit with the patient. They take them to activities. If they're in a facility, they can do activities with them. There's all sorts they can do gentle touch. We've had one woman that used to go visit her patient every week and do her nails.
Yeah. So is there a minimum set of hours that a volunteer is required?
3 to 4 times a month.
3 to 4 times a month. But I mean, while they're there, there's not a minimum time. You can be there from 5 to 8, from 5 to 9, from 11 to 7.
We've had volunteers go to visit the patient in the facility, and the facility wasn't up to a visit that day. So they've spent, going 5 minutes. In homes, usually it's less flexible because they like to work around the caregiver's schedule. And sometimes in a home, you could spend a little longer time because of the respite point where they can give the caregiver a little break, just to go to the bathroom.
Just again.
And the patient is still in charge.
Yes.
They can choose to decline a visit if they're just not feeling up to it.
Yeah.
But that relationship it becomes a relationship between the volunteers and the family, the volunteer and the patient, so that it's really up to that group of people, not up to us.
So this is a service that's going to be offered at Masonicare, at the facility in Mystic.
Correct. Right now, our Eastern Branch office is in East Lyme and Danielson. We have one in Danielson. And we are going to be moving to Masonicare at Mystic. Our office, the administrative offices, will hopefully move January, February. The facility itself will be opened in the fall, and that's independent living, assisted living, and a memory care facility.
So both your offices will be in Mystic. And so, Wendy, we just have a few minutes. How long have you been doing this? You said 10 years?
This will be my 4th year.
4th year at this,
Right, but I've been a volunteer for over 10 years.
And Casey, how long have you been doing this?
I've been in hospice for 4 years. I've been a social worker for about 10, 11.
Wow, so very passionate
Very
about
passionate.
what
Very
you do.
passionate.
Well, ladies, we just have a little over a minute here, and just want to thank you, for all that you do. It certainly takes a certain person as well to do the job that you ladies do, and we're very grateful. And we look forward to seeing you at Masonicare. Even if it's just to say hello, and also to be an advocate for the message that we have produced here today. Talk about hospice, get a hold of these ladies if there's any questions, and certainly support Masonicare, because we'll be going to McQuaid's and visiting our friends at Masonicare. But thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
And
It's
Kristin,
been a
I'm glad
delight.
to see you.
glad to see you, Susette.
Next week, I think, for another show as we head into the fall and winter with.
No, don't say that. La la
La la la la la. And our
Oh, yeah.
move, you'll see us. We're gonna have a great new offices in the next couple of
I
weeks.
need hospice for summer.
For summer.
I need you to come over and get me to get over summer.
And we are proud to serve, and of course, Kristin worked for the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce, and we are the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce. Mystic Matters. Good evening.